Good evening. I have another story. He was glad he was born before the World Wide Web had ensnared the whole world in its threads. It's a relatively new tool that's quick to make fools of its users who abuse it and give away sensitive information to swindlers willing to take it. Even he couldn't escape the fate like so many did before him. So I implore thee to look out for the illusions and liars stitched into the fibers of the web. Please heed what I've said and what I'm about to be rapping. This shit actually happened. About 8 years back, he was 20 years young. Thought he knew a lot, but he was actually pretty dumb when this pretty little thing sent him a message on Facebook. Or maybe he messaged her. He can't remember, whatever. She was beautiful, with eyes like starbursts, and lit up his mind with thoughts and fantasies of wanting to see her naked body. Let's be real. Strangers meeting over Facebook know the deal, but don't get it twisted. He wasn't simply objectifying this girl. I mean, we'd have to put in time before they rocked each other's worlds. He wanted to get to know her, honest, he swears, and if they never got that far, they had to chase, so who cares? Eventually, they moved their correspondence off the web and they'd stay up late talking on their phones in their beds about, well, he can't remember. It's been too long to tell, except he does remember she says her stomach wasn't feeling well. And after about a week of listening to her complain, he said, go see a doctor to seek the source of your pain. And she did. And a few days later, she called him back with the news. Her voice was in this key like she was singing the blues. And when she told him what was wrong, he didn't know how to respond. It was such a shock. It short-circuited his neurons. He stood there frozen, feet stuck to the floor. The official diagnosis was stomach cancer, stage 4. And he did anything he could to try to make her feel better, tell her jokes, make her laugh. Hell, he'd even talk about the weather, whatever he had to say to take her mind off her health. He just wished that he could have held her close to himself. But whenever he entertained the idea of going to meet her, she didn't want to be in a hospital the first time that he'd see her. She said she wanted to run and jump into his brace, but he couldn't shake the thought of actually seeing that pretty face. He figured, well, how mad could she be if I'd have showed a better door? So before he went to see her, he grabbed some flowers from the store. Now, he'd never been to the medical district in his life, so he just wandered, picked a building, and hoped that he was right. He found a lady behind a desk with access to the web where they kept all the names of all the people in the beds. And he gave her the name of the girl he wished to surprise, and as she looked at the files, he saw this look in her eyes, and she looked into thine and said, I'm sorry, sir, I have all the names right here, and, well, I don't see hers. So he wandered to a corner and dialed the girl's number, and she answered in a voice that had just arisen from slumber. He said, I'm sorry, sleepyhead, but there's been some kind of blunder. I don't know what name of the hospital you're listed under. And she was completely caught off guard, which she completely expected, but he wasn't ready for what she said next because it seemed really strange, but he believed her anyway. She said the name he knew her by wouldn't be the same as the one on the list and proceeded to explain that her name on Facebook is actually her middle name and her first name's something else, and he's trying to wrap his brain around this excuse that on second thought is sounding kind of lame. If your name's in the database, wouldn't it all come up the same? And how could you never tell the guy who's made you laugh and heard you cry something as honest as how you identify yourself to the world? But maybe that's too simplified, and maybe this girl's crazy and isn't really worth his time. But how could he abandon someone who's about to die? He justifies and turns and walked out, mystified at his willingness to abide to this crazy sick girl's pleas and cries. Now, before he goes back home, shoulders slumped, head hanging low, he stops at her apartment because she told him that's where to go. She said she wanted the flowers. She knew she would love them. She said, when you get there, tell me. I'll text my cousin. We live in the same building. She can keep them for me. So he waited in the lobby as the cousin descended from the top story. And he gave her the flowers, and the exchange was a bit weird because the door lady said something like, oh, isn't that lovely, dear? And then he quickly remarked, like, no, these are for someone else. And then he quickly left to save himself from any more time doing this weird thing, giving flowers to a stranger for a stranger he can't even meet. Now, allow me to condense the next events. This shit ain't over yet. But based on what just happened, maybe you can guess what happens next. As time went on, his friends were like, dude, what's going on? Something about this girl does not add up. The summation's wrong. And he started to put together all the pieces of the mystery, like how he saw the cousin a second time when she came visiting at his place in Wrigleyville because she said she loves the Cubs. And he gave the cousin some pictures he drew to cheer the sick girl up. And as they were talking, he made a funny connection that the girl and the cousin sound similar in conversation. And how about on Facebook? The girl's got like no friends, But she's got all these pictures with all these people that no one has tagged in. How does it explain the video she sent to him playing with her dog? The shit don't make sense to him. So eventually and inevitably he calls her up and calls her out and says, hey, I need some proof because right now I'm just filled with doubt. Send me a picture with my name written on your skin. And the whole time she's stalling and she's crying to him like, how come you don't believe me? How could you call me a liar? But he turns up the heat to cleanse the shit with fire, and he'll see what remains when all the smoke clears, a scorched monument to honesty or ashes smoked in fake tears. And eventually, she sent him a picture, but he's thinking Photoshop's a handy tool. And he was sick of getting treated like a goddamn fool. He said, I'm sorry, whoever you are. I just don't believe you. And she had something very convenient to say. She'd be going to a cancer treatment center the very next day with a one-way ticket out of Midway, somewhere on the West Coast far away. It's sad to say in this day and age, my story's worth a dime a dozen. If you didn't figure it out, I'm pretty sure the sick girl was the cousin. In the few weeks following the 6 months this all occurred, I thought a lot about it, and it made my head hurt like it manipulated by a sociopath. It's not that great. I felt extremely violated, and it made me learn to hate. But I'm over it now because I'm telling all you fine people to take my story as a reminder the internet will be used for evil. But to think about it all, it still makes me sick because the worst part of it all, I sent her pictures of my dick.